Hello to you all, and welcome to my weekly update video for Monday, the 20th of June, 2015. I'm Dakian, and you're looking at Evelyn the Explorer. A miniature that I spent a lot of time on, experimented a lot on, and gave me a lot of trouble. I'm not sure how successful the experiment is. The idea here is that I wanted to do a more extreme OSL effect than I did previously on Marcus. The concept here is that she's exploring an old abandoned graveyard, and I thought, why does she have a torch? Well, it must be in the middle of the night, so this should be the only light source. So I painted her as having a sort of yellowish cast on the parts that would sort of be seen by rays radiating, light rays going out from the torch, and everything behind that sort of should be in deeper shadow. That's the theory. So you should be able to see a pretty sharp dividing line where it shifts. Now, there's a lot of things I'm not sure about here. First off, how about the strength of the glaze and the shading, if it's over the top. The transition between the two is perhaps a little sharp, I'm not sure. But mostly, I think the thing I think I made a mistake on is highlighting and shading the leather parts, like this, like the belt pouch there. You can't really differentiate it from the clothing. Realistically, the leather would probably not reflect light exactly the same way as the cloth of how the rest of her outfit should. So yeah, I should have done that a little bit differently. But oh well. Like I said, it was an experiment. I learned a lot. You live and you learn. I will perhaps do it slightly differently next time. Moving on. We have the Malifaux section, where I have not completed very much. I've done these two. First off, we have the old school Horcats, who are on a scenic base, a plastic Micro Art Studios base. And yeah, they're not standing perfectly on it because, well, it was not, I did not create this base specifically for them, so it's not a perfect fit everywhere, but it looks okay, I think, and I like them. I think they're pretty cute. And then we have the Jackalope on another Micro Art Studios base, who I decided to paint with blood on his antlers and coming and dripping from his mouth, because I haven't played with him yet, but just looking at the stats, the Jackalope is a pretty vicious little beast. It's not that he does a whole lot of damage, but it's that attacking is his only reason for existence. He doesn't, I mean, most totems in Malifaux, like, they're primarily there to provide buffs of some sort, but not the Jackalope. The Jackalope is there to annoy and harass the enemy because it keeps coming back. It's not hard to kill, but it keeps coming back for more. That's its defining trait. So, I'm looking forward to playing with him. The final finished product of something more non-bonesy is these. What the heck are these, you might ask, and why is there one missing? Oh, there it is. These are the treasure tokens from Frostgrave. Now, if you didn't watch my first look at Frostgrave the other day, you really should. It's a game that I will be probably playing a lot of going forward, and I'm going to be painting a lot of minis dedicated to Frostgrave. And one of the these tokens, this is like the main objective of the game, is to go into this ruined city and collect treasure. and so you need tokens that you place on the map to represent the treasure you have to collect. And because, as the name Frostgrave might indicate, it's a city that has until now been frozen in ice and it's just starting to thaw out, so it's still pretty chilly, and that's why I put snow effects on them as well. And they're not terribly complicated, but I kind of like them. They turned out okay. So let's move on to projects in the works, shall we? Why am I showing this again, you wonder? Well, I decided after looking at the last clip that I wanted to give you another view of Evelyn under other lighting conditions, because in my living room where the other clip was filmed, the lighting has a yellowish cast to it from the lamp, whereas here in my workspace the lighting is more white, and I hope that will show the color differentiation here better than in the other version. Well, we'll see. Anyway, moving on. Malifaux. I'm still working on this guy. This is the alternate Marcus. I've done a little work mostly on this patchwork leather skirt, different colors of leather patches, and a few other details, but that's mostly what I've been doing. I'm still really uncertain about the skin tone. I don't quite know what to do with that, but I'll figure it out eventually. I don't have a lot of other Malifaux in the works. The only thing I've started on is this guy, the Slate Ridge Mauler. Here's the artwork, and here's the pieces of him. What I've done is I took all the pieces off the sprues and cleaned off mold lines and the like, and did some dry fitting. I'm gonna have to figure out something about the base, because he has such a wide stance that his feet are sticking out even from a 50mm base. I want to have at least one Malifaux project always in the works, even if Malifaux is not going to be my priority in the coming weeks. I always want to keep it on at least the back burner. Here we're looking at the first of my Strangers on the Train sets, the Call of Cthulhu minis. I've decided I'm not going to paint all 10 of them at once, so I'm doing them a few at a time, and I prepared these first 3, which are the train crew, so to speak, the 2 conductors and the waiter. You can see down here I have actually prepared bases for all 10 in advance. I hope you can see that if we do a close-up of one. No, it's not focusing. God damn it. There we go. See, my camera can't refocus dynamically. I have to shut it off and start it up again to get it to focus differently. What I wanted to show you was the level of detail on these minis. On this face, for example, the amount of character they've put into it. I really, really like that. And here's another guy, perhaps not exactly as distinctive because he's still a young dude, but this guy with his walrus mustache, I really like him. He's cool, and the sideburns. Yeah, I'm gonna enjoy working on these. Now, freshly primed just today, we have my first batch of miniatures intended for Frostgrave. These first 2 in front are official Frostgrave miniatures produced by North Star. This is the Sigilist Wizard and her apprentice. Now, for their warband of soldiers, you can have up to 8 soldiers. I did not go for the plastic kit produced by North Star because I already had a bunch of guys that I thought seemed appropriate and that I wanted to use. I wanted to paint these up. These are some, and these are only 4 so far. I decided I can't paint all of them at once, so I'm doing them in batches. These are some English brigands from Redbox Miniatures. So you have this archer dude here, and you have a guy with a long club. He's a short staff or a big club, perhaps. And a second archer with bow drawn. And finally a guy with simply a cudgel. I really like these. These are, like I said, Redbox games. I don't know if I've advertised for them before, so to speak, but they're one of my favorite companies. It's a one-man operation, a single sculptor who goes by the somewhat odd name of Trey Manor, who does all the work, and he's a great sculptor. I really like the way he does things. He does these realistically proportioned to guys. They're in true scale, not heroic scale, and the detail is just amazing. And yeah, I think I'm going to enjoy painting these up as well. As far as bones go, well, I completed this evil mermaid type, and amazingly enough, I might have to actually zoom out for this. This is the Star Spawn of Cthulhu, which I finally got done. I agonized a lot over how to paint him, but I solved that by simply slapping a lot of different layers on him and then just continuing to work at it until I was happy. It was a messy process, but it came out okay, I think. For some interesting monsters, we have the slimes and so forth. Here we have a gray ooze and an ochre jelly and the gelatinous cube. Now, I finally decided, oh, this one's too big as well, I have to go out like this. I finally decided that I'm not going to glue it together. I've left it in two parts. And these are not painted at all. It's just the base here with the victim's remains that has been painted. And the reason for that is that I want to be able to use it when playing D&D, for example, just to say engulf a player character. Say that this guy is a play character. So I say that, oh, you're trapped in it. And the thing is, if it was glued together, then not all minis would fit. A lot of minis would be sort of not fit inside this little hole. So keeping the pieces separate means that I don't have to have a perfect fit. I can just leave it a little bit like that, and it doesn't really matter. It's just represents what's happening. While this guy is out, I can bring forward all the human characters I painted, which was a lot of them. All 9 of these fantasy heroes got painted, and they're a motley crew. We have this little sorceress. Oops. While I paint these very sloppily, but I'm kind of surprised myself at how well the hair turned out on this one. We have this Dark Knight. I decided to paint the cloak a bright red as a contrast to all the darkness in him. I thought that was fun. And here we have some sort of Viking shield maiden, I suppose. The silly horns. This guy, this was actually the prototype. This was where I tried out the OSL effect that I later used on Evelyn. And I don't know if you can tell, but it's even more extreme on this one because these flames are really, really big. They're coming out of his hands. And let's see here, we have a bard playing a flute. And some sort of martial artist. With a strange looking sword. And we have an elf, the only non-human in this group. And yeah, what we got left? We have a somewhat, I don't know, Middle Eastern inspired swordswoman with the scimitars and the sort of, yeah, robes and whatnot. And finally a wizard who is floating off the ground. He's sort of levitating a little bit. You can see his feet there. They're not touching the ground. And he's got a big collection of wands and a big book there. Yep. That is my collection of completed bones for this week. And so here we can see that few of last week's bones projects did not get finished. We have the frogs, the turtles, and the fish. They've all had a little bit of paint slapped on them, but they're nowhere near completion. We'll see what happens this week. I did prep and prime a bunch of new monsters. First off, we have the humanoid ones. We have these 3 goat-headed beastmen types. We have 2 minotaurs and 2 centaurs. Now the spears on the centaurs are a little bit bent still. They were even worse originally, and there's only so much you can do with this soft, stupid plastic. And speaking of soft plastic, this guy is a problem because his legs are just way too thin for his body. They can't support him. He's either leaning forward too much, or originally he was leaning backwards too much, and so I used the hot and cold water method to straighten the legs, but then he instead became leaning forward too much. It's a shame because it's a cool dude. It's a huge sort of swamp monster thing. Oh well. Here we have a classic D&D monster, the Carrion Crawler. Sorry, I should hold him. A basilisk. I don't know what this is. It probably has a name. I don't know. Just say a brain on legs. Yeah. And some dragonlings. These are young, like baby dragons. And yeah. Let's see how many of those get done. Briefly to show you what I was playing. If by some strange coincidence all those bones get finished, these are bones with some assembly required that I'm haven't had time to do, but that they're next in line. This is the Roper, again another classical Dungeons and Dragons monster. This one I don't know what. This is not an official D&D monster. It's just something they made up. It's like a big mouth coming up out of the ground, and it has these little tentacles you apply in them, and this, I believe, is glued inside this, so it's like a second row of teeth. Yeah, that might look cool. Well, so as you might have noticed, I'm going to take a little bit different direction in my painting the coming weeks. There will be, as I think I mentioned, more of a focus on Frostgrave because I want to get a warband ready for that. I mean, Malifaux, I have a good-sized crew now. I can play a pretty high amount of Soulstone game. And sure, expanding Marcus's crew with more options is cool, and maybe starting a second crew would be cool, but it's not necessary right now. And the Call of Cthulhu guys, yeah, I'm gonna play Call of Cthulhu, but you don't really need minis for that. They're nice and they're cool to have out as inspiration, as a visual reference, but they're not necessary the way they are in a miniatures game. For Frostgrave, I really need to get a warband together ASAP. Right. What am I going to buy in the future? Well, I'm sorely tempted, and the reason I'm showing you a lot of Bones right now is that I'm sorely tempted by the current Bones Kickstarter. I didn't think I would be, but and I don't care about the core set this time around. I'm definitely not going for the normal scale minis, but they introduced some large monsters. They have some dragons, they have some terrain pieces, the stone circle that I'm interested in. They have a paint set that I might want to get. And they introduced a lot of Cthulhu Mythos stuff. They have Shub Niggurath, for freak's sake, and they have a whole expansion with just Cthulhu stuff. That really hits me where I hurt. Yeah. I'm gonna have to weigh the pros and cons of that very, very carefully. Oh boy. I'm continuing to pick up Malifaux old first edition metal miniatures because, as I've mentioned before, I kind of often prefer them to the new plastics. So I'm trying to snap those up from the few places that still have them while they still remain. I did back one Kickstarter recently, which doesn't show up in my numbers yet because I haven't finalized the pledge manager. It's from Mears Miniatures. They did a Kickstarter for turning some of their armies into metal instead of resin, which makes them less expensive. And that was just too tempting, so I went in for 2 units of that. Well, I'm weak that way. Anyway, as regards to videos, I did 3 videos last week since last Monday update. You can go back and look at them in my channel if you like, if you haven't missed them. I got a good comment from somebody on Twitter about putting in chapter stops in the comments to my, not the comments, but the info to my videos. And for the longer videos, I'm going to start doing that, I hope. I think you might see it on this video even. In future, I might break up these update videos into even more sections if they're going to keep being this long. I could break them up by game, for example, have a Malifaux section and a Frostgrave section and a Call of Cthulhu section, something like that. That might be one way to do it. Other future videos. This coming week, I have a couple of reviews planned. If it shakes out the way I think, I'm going to do 1 DVD review and 1 book review. But that's only 90% certain at this moment. We'll have to see. But now I've rambled on for quite long enough. So until I see you in the next video, Dakian is signing off.